The first thing you need to do is you need to tap into what motivates people. So generally at the start of a project, I will try to invest some of the time doing things like interviews with the staff. So just meeting with people for an hour, sitting down with them and seeing where they're at. And you'll find that most companies, or every company, is made up of a lot of people who really would like to do a better job than what they're doing. But there'll be certain pain factors, certain things that are holding them back from that. And so we need to actually find out where the company's at. What's really important if you want to implement OKR is that you then get some proper training about what OKR is. Otherwise, people tend to kind of implement it and it becomes the next problem on top. OKR should be the solution and not the problem. So you need to make sure once you've understood where the customer's at, that you do some proper training. And then after that, if we say normally an OKR period will be a quarter. Not always, but most companies choose a quarter, at least at the start. And what I like to do is I like to come back a couple of times throughout that quarter to just touch base with them, to find out how they're getting on, to take away any initial issues they have, to give them some training at the end about how they're going to close the quarter. And then, obviously come back and support them on the all hands stuff. So that's the way a project generally kicks off. One of the challenges is not really understanding what it should do, because OKR sounds like so many other tools, but it's not. And so trying to get them to understand where the real benefits are from is difficult. And you will always have people that are more skeptical, and you'll always have people that just run and do things straight away. Both of these groups are just as dangerous as each other. The skeptics don't want to see the value, and the other people have seen the value, they believe at least, and they start running towards the wrong thing. And so it's really about making sure that people do the whole job. And I always say if you implement 90% of OKR, it's like pushing a bicycle. You've got a great tool, but it'll feel like extra work. And so that's one of the main issues that we have to deal with. I think one of the other issues as well is the whole thing about setting stretch goals, moonshots. And people talk about scary goals, and I think that's very detrimental to the project. And so instead of talking about a scary goal, I just like to ask people, what are you dreaming of achieving? And if you compare it to your private life, I don't think anyone sets realistic holiday targets. Have you ever said, okay, one of my targets for this holiday is that I'm going to pay €5 for a coffee, and I'm going to spend 4 hours in a queue, or I'm going to be delayed for 3 hours at the airport. That's realistic, but nobody dreams of that. Otherwise, we wouldn't go on holiday. If we thought about the pain we have on holiday, we wouldn't go, we'd stay at home. So searching for the dreams, and winners look at the goals and not the hurdles. That's something that we really have to work on. And I think it helps to ask people, what are you dreaming of achieving in the next 3 months? What would be a great status to get to in the next 3 months? And that's how you define an objective. So, the first thing that OKR does is it shows you how much potential you've been missing. And that's actually a really positive experience. You'd expect it to be painful, but when you realize you can actually achieve a lot more things than you expected, then it's very motivational for people. What then generally tends to happen after that is it starts teaching you where are the areas where you need to change things and slightly improve. And so you'll find if people are having inefficient meetings, OKR will help them recognize that. If you find that people are not setting clear goals, OKR will help them recognize that. If you find that companies are setting clear goals but they're not delivering on them, OKR will help you recognize that. And it's really interesting to see that each OKR customer has its own personality. Just like we all as people have our own personalities. And I've got one customer, it's a team of 180 IT people, and they all keep talking about the green area of the brain and things like that. They don't like to set stretch goals and moonshots, but they're great on delivery. I've got another customer working in the media branch. They're great on setting moonshots, but the delivery is the difficult bit for them. So everyone has their own little challenge, but it does make those challenges transparent and gives you a method to work on it. And that's the nice thing. You don't just find out where I need to improve, you find out how to improve at the same time. And that's lovely. I come out of an engineering project management background. I ran a company for 8 years, and I've been consulting on lean and project management. But I've always said you can't do those things if you don't have a strategy and if you don't involve your team. And that's one of the great benefits of OKR, is getting teams focused on strategy and making people feel like winners. So I call myself a progress coach, purely and simply because I get frustrated when we're only moving around in circles instead of going forwards. And, I like to think that I help people to love their job. That's my ultimate objective, is when people have worked with me together, at the end of the project, they should say, this has been worthwhile, and now we're getting more involved in the sensible stuff that's helping me to do a good job. I mean, OKR became famous as helping startups because startups need structure. Just Sean Carolan once said, startups don't starve of ideas, they drown in them, And so that's how it helps a small organization that's getting started. If we look to an established company with a few thousand employees, then it's exactly that we're trying to tap into with OKR. An objective is the value, it's the dream that we're trying to make come true. The key results are the things we have to achieve to make that happen. And focusing on the value and what we're achieving takes us away from that output mindset. And it is so wonderful. At the start of workshops, I generally ask people, what do you want to get out of this whole training workshop? And people come up with things like, I hope OKR will make us work faster. It won't make you work faster. It will make you be more effective. And that's what it's all about. And this whole working hard to feel good about myself is what holds large organizations back. And often we've got scary bosses who are the ones that are creating a culture like that. OKR will help the scary boss to realize what will really benefit themselves, their career, and the company they're working for. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Outcomes, not effort. There's a certain thing that when your company becomes successful, then they get to a point where they don't have to get up in the morning anymore, where they're not as hungry anymore. And we get into a point where we're successful, but not that successful. And that's when the buzz goes away. So often the companies that I deal with, there are lots of different sizes, lots of different branches. It's mainly established companies. And often it's one that a company that's been through a period of growth, and they haven't concentrated on sticking together as a team and aligning themselves. And so what you'll find is you've got departments that are working against each other. You've got people that are working in parallel on the same things. You've got KPIs that aren't helping each other. You basically got a lot of different departments that aren't really gelling together as a company. And that's something that stops them really fulfilling the potential. And I think there's a direct correlation between success and motivation. The more success you have, the more motivated you are. If a company is nearly bankrupt, you're motivated. And that little bit of success you have to avoid bankruptcy gives you a great buzz. But after that, when you become not bankrupt anymore, when you're just in the kind of middle field, then you're not feeling successful, you're not motivated. So generally companies be like 500 up to 50,000 or 200,000. In those areas, if they've been successful, then they tend to forget about aligning themselves. And that's how OKR helps. I think, if you look at it, most companies work on a quarterly basis with their OKRs. So your first quarter is really about finding your feet. And people often say, oh, this sounded so simple. It's just like watching people swimming. It always looks simple. You try and do it, then you realize the challenge. Generally, within the first 2 quarters, then people realize where the benefits are. Most people get it in the first quarter. Some people need 2 quarters to see the benefits. When you get to half a year, then you'll see where the final challenges are. And that's where it's worth doing a little OKR audit for yourself. Just look back at how you were trained and think about what have we actually missed out from the training, because that's probably the thing that's holding you back. As I say, doing 90% of OKR is like pushing a bike. It's like having a great tool, but it's giving you extra work. If you're pushing a bike, it's not going to help you. You need to sit on it by using it properly. That's the same with OKR as well. When it gets to about a year, then it's fantastic, because this is the bit where people really are living it. And they're not concentrating on the process anymore, they're concentrating on the content. OKR is a garbage in, garbage out system. OKR is just a framework. It's the toolbox for all your other tools. You can use it to be innovative for lots of different things. But if you're concentrating on the toolbox and not the content, then you're going to not get the best results out of it. After a year, people know how to do their alignment and they get much better results. And that's where it really, really takes off. You get results in the first time, but after a year, things are really excelling. One of the first ones is OKR is not just CIP, not a continual improvement process. OKR is about innovation. And so the way we innovate with OKR is by setting ourselves goals that we believe we can't achieve, because it makes us attack things in an innovative way. Innovation is just about finding a new solution to an existing problem or using an existing solution to solve a new problem. And you won't do that by doing what you've done in the past. I'm a big fan of continual improvement processes, and you can use OKR to accelerate on that. But don't just replace CIP with OKR and think that you're doing the same thing. Set yourself a goal that really is a stretch goal, and try and really use it for more than just one OKR in the first quarter. Certainly I've made mistakes as a trainer in the past by saying to people, let's just start with one. And then people get so scared about going to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I'd rather you do 5 bad OKRs in the first quarter than one perfect one, because OKR is not about perfection. It's about delivery and adding value. Well, I mean, the obvious big benefit of software with OKR is the transparency. So if I start doing OKR with a very small team, then I've got a very, very simple Excel spreadsheet that we work with. And that's great to get started. But, even in a small team, when you get to the second or the third quarter of using an Excel spreadsheet, people scream at me for the lack of transparency. And OKR is about interaction. And that's where Excel sheets really find their limits, because the interaction and the transparency is just not supported by that. Even if you hang them on the wall, which I've done in projects that we printed out, do everything by hand, it's just a different thing. And in this day and age, being able to use an app and to check in, being able to give an instant answer, I think it's really important to track what you do with OKRs. Some people shy away from it, but it's not about writing a diary. It's just a quick logbook. And being able to log that quickly in your software is so fantastic. Being able to then share that with other people is great. Being able to see how other people are getting on with their OKR work, and then being able to ring them up and ask about a specific issue is great as well. So the whole collaboration is on a totally different level with software.